Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Luke Watley and my friend Lisa Giudice is right there, and she'll interrupt me whenever she feels like it. So don't feel offended if I don't finish my sentence. Also, we have other people here who have been to Standing Rock, and Lauren and her son. I forget your name. Sorry, Angel. Right? How could I forget? Has anybody else here been to Standing Rock? All right. Has any one of you been activists in any way? Yeah. And are there any natives in the room beside Lauren and Angel? And the reason I ask is because I am, and Lisa too, are very, very thankful to what the Sioux tribe has created in Standing Rock, because they've done it the right way. Instead of going out there and fighting a pipeline, they're actually voicing their need to preserve clean water for generations to come. And when you put the focus on something valuable, then you tend to be on the right side of history. If you fight, then you just attract more fighting. The result of that is that, as you'll see during my presentation, is that the police has tried to antagonize the natives and their allies by creating violence and trying to then, in return, get violence back. And I think they failed miserably for the most part. So the violence has actually attracted more attention than Standing Rock would have received without it. And so it's backfired.
Shot themselves in the foot?
Yes, they certainly have. So, what is that doing there? Jeez. Yeah, all my notifications are coming. Hey, get out. Hey. Okay, well, we'll wait till the X appears. So, I don't know what happened. Lisa and I had been trying to have coffee together for a long time, and we could never do it. And then one morning, we could connect, and then we start talking about Standing Rock. And there was very few people on Facebook at that time among our friends who were talking about it. And we couldn't raise...
We didn't get a response.
Yeah, we couldn't get a response, and we were thinking, let's go. And so we were thinking a week ahead of time, and then after that, Saturday arrived, and we had the big announcement with the dog attacks and pepper spray, and the little girl went to the hospital, and Amy Goodman presented that on Democracy Now! And when we heard that, we thought, we got to leave right away. We can't postpone this trip anymore. But, okay. Gee. How come it's stuck? Ah, thank you. Okay. So the first thing I want to present to you is this quote by Crazy Horse, who lived, I don't remember what century, but 7 generations ago. The Red Nation shall rise again, and it shall be a blessing for a sick world, a world filled with broken promises, selfishness, and separations, a world longing for light again. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. And when you talk to elders over there, they talk about 4 colors, red, black, yellow, and white. And those are the 4 basic races. And the white folks are the little brother. They consider all these colors as one family. The little brother has been kind of rambunctious and doing things that are not completely nature friendly. And the elders tell us that they have been waiting for white folks to come to their consciousness, to awaken. And so to me, that's a very friendly way of approaching it, instead of saying we're at war against the white people because they've oppressed us for 500 years or something. You know, there's a lot of kindness there, and a lot of hope for a healed coming together. The one word that, if you remember any native word, Mini Vichani, which is water is life or water is sacred, I've heard both. And people will say that, chanting it, giving power to our water. One of the first things that we heard about is this guy that was nicknamed Happy, who had attached himself to a machine. And at that time, they took this picture of an officer actually giving him water. Things have changed since then. This was September 3. This is a video by Democracy Now! That Amy Goodman, she was right there on the land before the attack started and was able to film some of it and interview people. I'm not going to go and present all this. It would take way too long. But it's incredible that she was right there at the time when the attacks were happening, that she was able to preserve that and show it on TV. So we decided to go. One woman put on Facebook, "I seen an 18-year-old young man get shot while on a horse today. Then his horse. I was standing 20 feet away. I seen young warriors on horse being chased on ATVs, being shot at. I seen our former chairman get arrested. I seen an auntie grandma get maced right in the face. I seen the cops drag 2 men from the sweat lodge feet from me in their underwear and slammed face down into the ground and arrested. All these crimes were committed against our people on land guaranteed to our people under the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851. So to give you a little bit of an idea, in light orange is that treaty land. Let's call it the treaty land from 1851. And what the reservation outline is today is here. Where the pipeline was first supposed to be is outside of Bismarck, north of Bismarck. But somehow that was supposed to be too dangerous for Bismarck. So they changed the route and went right maybe half a mile north of the tip of the reservation, but through treaty land without asking permission to the natives. There is an audio recording that the natives actually met, the Sioux leaders met with them in 2014. They always denied that there was such a meeting. They always said that the natives didn't want to meet. And so the audio proves that that was wrong. And so we have to keep in mind that there's a difference between the reservation outline and the treaty land outline. Because I've seen people say it's not really on reservation land. Why are they upset? Well, the treaty land actually is rightfully theirs, and they are trying to make that legal by going through the court system, but it always takes a long time. This is a map of all the pipelines in liquid form in the U.S., and that's a map from 2016. There are more than 2.4 million miles of pipeline, and 72,000 miles of that is for crude oil. Crude oil is from fracking oil. And so that's about 3% of the total length of pipelines for crude oil, and that's from 2010 to 2015. And in yellow here, I have the summary of the percentage of accidents in that period of time that are due to crude oil pipelines, and it's over 30%. So compare that, 3% of the length of pipelines, 30% of the incidents. Crude oil is more dangerous than anything else that's going through those pipelines. In purple there, I have data from 2002 and 2012, and from another website, and there the incidence was more than like 43% of crude oil incident. So, and that's the kind of oil that's going through the pipeline in North Dakota and through 4 states. And so when they say pipelines are the most efficient and the less dangerous way of transporting oil, they're not differentiating between crude oil and liquid oil and other forms of oil. They're not saying that to the public. And so I think this is an important piece of information to keep in mind. And this is a map of the rivers going through that region. So you see how extensive the Missouri River and the Mississippi River are. They're estimating about 18 million people would be affected if those rivers were polluted. So we decided to go first. This is a map. This is an aerial photo of the camps. This is the Cannonball River going through here. The first camp was here, called Sacred Stone Spirit Camp. There were, at that time, maybe 200, 300 people there. This is the Rosebud Camp, 200, 300 people, max 300. It's a smaller area. And here there's like thousands of people. That's the main camp. It used to be called the Oceti-Sakowin Camp. Now it's the All Nation Camp. And so when we talk like in total, maybe the maximum number of people that were there was between 12,000 and 15,000. It's hard to estimate. And that was right at the peak when the vets went recently. But it started in April this year, and Lisa and I, our first trip was in September. When we arrived there, we were offered to stay in a teepee. It was late at night instead of setting up our tent, and we stayed in that teepee for a week, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful not to have to stay in a tent. A teepee is much more comfortable. But we had to give it up. At all three camps, there's a sacred fire they're trying to keep it burning all the time. This one on the Rosebud Camp, it wasn't burning all the time, but they kept it burning pretty well.
But it always had coals at least.
Yeah, and when we first were there, we could make coffee over it, and then that little kettle there is where we were making our coffee. It was really nice. Our first round there, 2 weeks, to me felt like a honeymoon with the situation. Compared to what our second trip became. We did go to the front line and met with people who attached themselves to the machines the first time around, but it was pleasant. This is our family. Curly is with the red bandana is the head security at the Rosebud Camp. His wife Donna was the head kitchen person, and then the man on the chair is the elder. Phil Little Thunder, and he's the one who gave us his teepee to stay for the first week. I'm going to go quick with some of the slides. So this is our first call of action, and you can see it's a dirt road, and on both sides of the road there were machinery, and on one of them was a guy from Peru who was giving an interview and explaining water is important. He had lived through the same kind of stuff in Peru, and he wanted to give his support to Standing Rock. And on the other side of the road were 3 women attached to some machines again. And Jill Stein was there. And then the next day our photo was, because Jill Stein's photo was there, I'm right behind her, and Lisa is a little bit to the right. We were there. We're not faking it. Lisa played The Sound of Silence on that one. Played the guitar every day, pretty much, during that first trip. On September 8th, you saw those canoes. There was a lot of natives that had decided to do a 10-mile canoe trip. Some of them came from Alaska, different parts of the world. They all started the same spot and then arrived. Then there was a celebration when they arrived. Every day there was a celebration because nation after nation after nation kept coming in caravans. Over 300 nations, maybe not during our 2-week period, but up to then, came to give their support to the Sioux Nation. And imagine, every time a new nation comes, it's a celebration. It could be at 3 a.m. You hear them. The drum, the singing, the music. You lived with celebration all the time during that first trip that we were there. We were not in the main camp, but the river is not that wide. You can walk across. It's muddy on the bottom, so not many people do it.
You can easily hear what goes on the other side.
You can easily hear. There were 2 stages. One was rap music, which was not too pleasant to my ear to sleep through, but the other side was much more traditional native music. And then one day there was this gentleman, a native, who we let him use our tent because we were still in a teepee, and he made this 3D turtle. just every day was a nice surprise. One day there were two kids fighting and they didn't want to talk to each other, and Lisa and I talked to each kid and then brought them back together, and they were so pleased to be able to be at peace with each other that they called me God and they called Lisa God Mom. And then they start, saying that to everybody, and it was like, okay, well, let's stay humble here. But it's that kind of energy that was there all the time, and we were doing prayer circles before each meal, which brought everybody together. It was so beautiful. More of our Phil Little Thunder. This is every time that we felt there was darkness, we could see there was light coming through some of the clouds. There will be light. Phil in his teepee that we were staying at, and he put a native flag in front of it. We had permission to dig a fire pit it was getting cold at night. During the day we could be in shorts, go in the water, swim, but during the night it was a little chilly. So on the main camp they had this teepee that you could sign, and it was covered all around. The children could sign inside, right?
Inside,
not us.
Represented the womb inside.
Yes.
Hey, Luke.
Yes.
They actually had that TV on. There was a Mini Wachoni fundraiser concert when we were there, and they had that TV on stage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I heard it was.
Did you all hear that? There was a fundraiser. Was it with all at the casino?
Yeah.
And they had
That's awesome.
moved that teepee to the casino on display at the fundraiser.
I heard it was going to the Smithsonian.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
very cool.
Yeah. It was-
Now the casino is about
I
15
just got the
minutes.
chills.
Yeah, 15 minutes away, and that's the only place where you could get Wi-Fi, unless you wanted to go to town, Bismarck, which is an hour away. So a lot of people would go to the casino just to replenish their batteries, or cell phone I'm talking about, or to be able to do stuff with their laptop with Wi-Fi. We went there one time to take a shower because it was kind of hard to get a shower. There was a marina, but
We were
sometimes
sick. We were sick too.
the first time around we weren't
Oh, the
sick.
first time.
And the marina, it took sometimes an hour or more before you could get to the end of the line, and by that time the water was cold. So we decided to just pay for a night's stay at the casino and get our shower there. More beautiful photos. One time we were asked by the guy who was in charge of the sweat lodge at the Rosebud camp to try and find a car where he could carry trees to heat up the rocks, the grandfathers and grandmothers for the sweat lodge. And so we went on this trip with him, and as we were driving, he was pointing at the shape of the clouds and the horizon, and he was saying that kind of shape, to him, it's like ancestors coming to
When
pay
the
a
light
visit.
hits behind it. He said.
Yeah. And then we had the visit of a gentleman, I think he's from an Inca tribe from Ecuador, and he came to pay his respect to Chairman David Archambault, who's on the left with his hat. And the hat that he has on his head is a gift from the Ecuadorian native. And they each spoke, and everyone said wonderful things. But the lady with her microphone on talked about her ancestors, and that they were buried where the dog attack happened. And I didn't say why the dog attack happened, but a couple of days before, the natives had gone to a judge and said, listen, the pipeline is going to go through some of our burial grounds, and here's the exact position. Well, as soon as the exact position was known, the pipeline company went with bulldozers and bulldozed through those sites to eradicate them. And that's why...
On a Saturday on the holiday weekend. So it was very intentional.
That's why the water protectors, who they like to be called that instead of protesters, went in a hurry and said, hey, what are you doing? And they went and prayed. And that's when there was security with dogs, and they unleashed some of their dogs, and it was clear from the film that Amy Goodman had that the dog had blood in his in his jaw. And but that's why that fight happened. So she's talking in this press conference about her ancestors being buried there, but that it's not just about that, that every time there's a pipeline company coming through or gold diggers or that kind of mentality, there's also prostitution that comes with that. There's drugs. In the older days, it was probably just alcohol, but and then there's sex trafficking. So it's the whole culture that's imported with it. And she had tears in her eyes when she was talking because 2 of her friends died of an overdose.
Crime
Heroin.
was up 160%.
Okay, and crime was up. Yeah. So, and you know, you hear that, but then somebody captured a video of a guy driving a pickup truck and asked a native woman how much for her daughter. So when you see that, sorry, but it's not just not just saying story. It's not propaganda. It's not trying to get tears out of your eyes. It's real. It's crazy.
They try to make the excuse that it's going to bring jobs, but it's usually, I think they said the average local jobs is like a couple months. It's not really. They all the guys come over with the pipeline, thousands of them at a time. They're the only ones getting the work.
Yeah, this pipeline actually is going to carry oil not for the U.S. but for China. It's not the quality oil that we can use here. And it would give maybe less than 100 jobs in the U.S. long term. Most of the money would be going to a few people. What's his name? Not John Kennedy. One of the Kennedys, who's an environmental lawyer. Robert Kennedy went there, and he gave a good. You can find it on YouTube, and he says actually long term this pipeline is not going to generate any money at all. The only reason they're building it is for advertising. As soon as you have infrastructure there in place, it creates a demand. It's just to keep us addicted to oil. That's all. That's the only purpose. This is the same gentleman on both pictures. You can see the transformation when he's with his warrior, what do you call it, makeup or... And Leonard Peltier was asked to make a statement. This was on September 30th. We were back by then from our first trip. And he said, "Greetings, sisters and brothers. I have been asked to write a solidarity statement to everyone about the camp of the Sacred Stones on Standing Rock. Thank you for this great honor. I must admit it is very difficult for me to even begin the statement as my eyes get so blurred from tears and my heart swells with pride. As chills run up and down my neck and back, I'm so proud of all of you young people and others there." And this is just the first paragraph. If you know anything about him, he's been in jail since the 70s. He was accused to have killed 2 FBI agents. He always claimed he was innocent. And there were witnesses there that corroborate that. It's pretty clear he was innocent. And each president since then have been asked to release him, and nobody has. Now his health is failing, and he still has the courage to say something as beautiful as this. He's got a big heart. Within a week of coming back, I wrote a prayer, which you can find on YouTube, just by writing my name and prayer. Lisa also wrote a text that was very deep on Facebook and shared it with people. 2 days later, a woman had found my YouTube videos through a friend of hers, and then she actually read it at a city council in her own town to make a point. It's a poem I wrote directly to the people who I call our gold diggers, or people who dig the earth for, what do you call those? Resources. I compare what they're doing as an addiction, and the bowl they're trying to fill has a hole in it, and they can never quite fill it, so they keep digging and trying to get some more. She actually read that whole thing to her city council, and I was pretty amazed that somebody would do that. Bernie Sanders and 4 other senators called on President Obama to halt the construction of the pipeline. This was on October 13th. Then we planned our second trip. On the right, you have a teepee for the mental health. They had started to do medic tents and mental health tents, or teepee. It's actually not a tent. The medic yurt, and they had several of them. They were starting to get organized, and we needed more of it because people would get hurt by rubber bullets and tear gas and what do you call those, concussion grenades, and it was horrible. On the left, you have their principles that they live by. We are protectors, we are peaceful and prayerful, there is no isms here, and so on. At the entrance of each camp, there's a no weapon, no alcohol, no drugs sign. And they're very clear about that. They were checking people's bottles to see if there's alcohol in them. They are very and basically that comes from the beginning when the elders said we can only win this. We've seen it in our visions. We can only win this if we are non-violent. And we were told very quickly to go to the legal tent, and there they gave us a marker to write the legal aid phone number in case we were arrested. And this is Lisa's hand showing her phone number. This was getting serious. The first time around when we were there was no such thing that I'm aware of. Things were laid back. We were playing with the kids. I was playing with the kid in the water. Lisa was playing her guitar.
You had to really want to get arrested to be arrested.
Yeah, the second time around, people were arrested. Even when they were listening to the police saying, please leave, they were starting to leave and the police would arrest them.
That sounds familiar.
Yes. So we went on the front line, and the machinery there, it's a photo so you can't see it, but they're actually working. And the helicopter is from that same company, and it's hovering around. There's a lot of natives and allies there. You can see over here, I think those are security for the pipeline company. There were a lot of police. We're looking north of Route 1806 here. And at that time, the pipeline company was on the west side. They hadn't crossed the street. On the east side were maybe 1,200 people camping there in teepees and tents, trying to prevent the company from crossing 1806. Well, that same day, the police had asked everybody to evacuate. They said that the teepees would be preserved, but the tents were not. All the equipment from the tents were stolen and peed on and then returned.
Thrown in a pile. They were just thrown in a pile. They weren't returned.
Eventually, I saw a big pile that was returned, but it was in terrible condition. So we could no longer we were asked to move to that north camp, and we could no longer move there because everything had been evacuated. So we had a friend who came from Hawaii and had a teepee there, and we set it up, and that was a lot of fun. And then one night, there was a big fire on the horizon, and over there you always have to be careful if what you hear is actually true. Some people were saying, "Oh gosh, those are the rebel young people who did that," and then other people said, "No, it can't be. It has to be the pipeline company." Well, it turned out that it was the pipeline company, and they took 4 hours before they started trying to put out this fire.
I woke up 2:30 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and it just looked, the whole horizon, I mean, that looks tiny compared to what it was. Everything was on fire, and it was coming down the hill. That was at 2:30 in the morning, and it wasn't until daylight that I even saw a helicopter come with water.
And there was only one doing it.
And it was just one.
And it was miles
burn.
of fire. So it was a threat to us. And another threat was the helicopters hovering over our heads at night, like maybe 200 feet over our heads, maybe lower, constantly. You could not blink an eye. You had this vibration and sound. And at that time, we didn't have earplugs.
Eventually it got more eerie when it was quiet, because it was so rare that it was quiet. And it's so interesting, the people that, most of you guys get info from social media, I mean, I know there's a little bit on Main Street, but what blows my mind is that if you are watching mainstream or reading the Bismarck Times or something like that, all these accusations that they have. I mean, these planes and helicopters flying 24/7. They have this amazing equipment. They have infrared. We're all being facial recognition. We're all being watched. It's all, they have everything, but yet every accusation they have, for every accusation, there's not one photograph of anything. It almost got comical to us, but.
There were also the drones that were going around too from the company to mess up everyone's phones and tap into them.
Right. There's actually, I shared it today, there's a link, Legal Aid wants everybody who had anything go weird on their phone, which I think of all of us, to go to the Legal Aid website and fill out a report, an incident.